Well, folks, in today's video, we're going to be building a large locomotive storage area over on this blank part of the layout. A few months ago, we built this staging yard for some of my larger consists, and so far this has worked very well. It's exactly what I was hoping for, but in this case, I want to build something for the larger engines. Now, since the last layout construction video, I went ahead and reinstalled the gully. I decided to raise it about 3 inches, which I think just gives it a little bit more of a natural look. I also started rebuilding the abandoned bridge, which I think might be part of some sort of a scene right here. Time will definitely tell. But as for actually connecting up the new section of track, we've got this bridge. I found this at Larkspur Line Train Store, and it's a custom piece. And I was looking for something like this, because due to the angle of that switch, trying to get it to line up with the yard I think would be quite tricky. So this should make things a lot easier. The only downside is that this is not very strong, but it is a good starting point for this section of track. Now I think to start off, we'll lay out some of these switches, we'll get them connected with some rail joiners, and then we'll slowly move on to rectifying this area right here, because there's a lot that needs to happen in terms of the alignment of all this track. But I think once we actually have some stuff on the table, that's all going to become a lot more clear, so let's get started. Well, so far it's all lining up pretty well. I got the insulated rail joiners installed on this side and also over here. Might have to carve away a little bit more of the boulder, but other than that, I think it's good to go. Well, that certainly made a big difference in terms of stabilizing the bridge without affecting the looks of it, so I'm very happy with that. I think at this point we'll focus on getting more of the roadbed under the track, lay out some of the other sections for the storage area for different locomotives, and then we'll focus on trying to get the reversing section to work. Now that we've got the roadbed in place, I think we can go ahead and set up some of the different rows of tracks along here. And luckily, I was able to pick up a whole bunch of it pretty cheap at Larkspur. I'll find some decent pieces, and then we'll just cut them all to length for each different section along here. With the track all put together, we can now wire up the reversing section. Now, as I might have already mentioned, we've got a couple isolated rail joiners right here, and a couple on this side, which means that this section of track has absolutely no power in it, and with a little bit of wiring, we can make it so that trains can stop here and then continue on going the opposite direction. I already did a video on how to do this, but I'll show you all again just for the sake of it. So basically, once you get your isolated section of track ready to go, all you need is some wire, a double pull, double throw switch. You can get these online or at electronic shops. And then you're gonna need some drill bits, some solder and flux, a soldering iron, and of course a drill so you can actually run the feeder wires through. Now the track right here is live, so we're going to pick up our power from this section. Alternatively, you could get it directly from your controller or from your track's feeder wires, but this should be pretty easy because in this case it's kind of far from the controller. Then you just measure out a length of wire from where you're going to connect your feeders to where your switch is going to be. Then I'm just going to solder one wire to each rail. Now you just take your feeder wires, and this is what's important, is that these two outside terminals here and on the opposite side are both intake. So we're going to run a wire to each tab, flip them, and then connect them to the other side to reverse the polarity depending on which direction we want to run this. I'll show it in practice. Once you get your wires all soldered up, what you need to make sure is that the other side is the opposite. So the tab here goes to the one here, and the tab on this side goes to this one. Nice crisscross. And now we'll move on to hooking up some feeder wires to the track. Now we're just going to hook up those wires from the track to the double pull, double throw switch. The way you choose to connect these will affect the direction, but when you flip the switch it changes it, so it should all be good. Eventually I want to make this part of a larger control station, but for now I'm just going to stick it on here because it will be easier. Now that we've got that all secure, I went through the entire line and flipped over the switches to the correct side. I want to try to run a train through here and see if there are any derailing issues, and we'll also be able to figure out if this is set to the correct polarity, because based off how it's been wired, I don't know if this switch is in the correct position, but we'll find out soon enough. Here's to trial and error. And it's shorted out, so we need to flip this switch. Like so. Now if we power up our train, we should be able to continue forwards. Flip this again, and just like that, it seems to work. Check it out. Nice. No derailments. Now if we try to run it backwards through here, and we flip that switch, we can get the train back the other way, and even in reverse it didn't derail, which is very impressive. Now, if your layout uses DCC, you can buy a module which can do the shifting automatically, and you don't need to wire up that switch. Since my layout uses both, I have to wire it as I have, but there's still one key difference when operating with DCC, which I want to test out right now. For this test, I'm going to remove the caboose because this is conductive, and if there's a momentary short, DCC is just more sensitive to that, so we'll take it off for the time being. And what I'm hoping to find out with this test is whether or not you can change the power in the track on the fly, because unlike DC power, DCC doesn't have a set direction. When you change the direction, you're changing what the decoder is sending to the motor, not the other way around. So what I'm hoping is that if we give this thing power while it's moving, we can just flip the direction in the track, and hopefully the train will just keep on coasting. No idea if this is going to work, and I'm not even sure if the QJ can handle the turns here, but I say let's just send it and see what happens. Alright, so the locomotive has now entered the block. I'm about to switch the power, and after switching the polarity, the engine's still continuing forward, so it does work. And let's see if I can navigate through this part of the track work. So far, so good. And yeah, no problem. Not bad for a 210-2. Well, folks, I think that's going to be almost it for today's video. I'm very happy with the progress that we made on this whole section right here. I still want to add electric switches and blocks and a lot of other things, but otherwise, I think that this should be a pretty welcome addition to the layout. Now, just before we finish things off, let's load this yard up with some different locomotives. I can already hear the comments from people saying I'm going to need to add some sort of a set of switches here, and I hear you loud and clear.